Welcome to What We Learn, the podcast of the Equity and Education Research Lab at the University of Toronto. In this episode, we will meet a graduate student pursuing a PhD focused on special education finance in Ontario. We will explore what she's learning, why it matters, and how a personal connection to the subject matter helps drive her questioning.
I am Ceci Vasoff, and I am just completing my fourth year of doctoral studies in the Educational Leadership and Policy program with the Department of Leadership, Higher and Adult Education at Boise at U of T.
As of April 2026, education finance in Ontario is in the news. The Ontario government released a new budget that created significant changes to the structures of school boards. Attendance is now going to be a mandatory part of all high school grades. The Toronto District School Board is reportedly planning large numbers of teacher job cuts in the coming year. There are public promises and assurances that these decisions are all part of a plan to bring schools into states of financial health and ensure student success. However, many are concerned that the cuts will problematically deplete resources for special education, which is the area supposed to support Ontario's most vulnerable learners. Ceci Vasoff is concerned about them.
My dissertation topic is equity in special education finance. And I focused in on Ontario. Essentially, what we're interested in is, are students getting what they need? And so we know that the per pupil funding varies across the province, depending on what school district students happen to reside in. And so what we want to know is that variation good variation? Does it reflect the underlying costs like transportation, or are you living up north or near a large urban center in South Central Ontario somewhere?
Ceci works with Dr. Elizabeth Dhuey, one of the world's leading experts on school education finance, who is developing a research stream about special education financing. An important aspect of special education finance is actually the way that disability education has been perceived and designed in North American education systems.
So disability in education really came online and was recognized in the state, say in the early 1970s. And many would argue that that's in categorizing children as either having disabilities or not having disabilities, you create a form of exclusion from general education. So there's really like two camps or two approaches to trying to offer equitable learning opportunities to students with various needs and capacities. So the first would be what would be popularly deemed as sort of a medicalized model of disability, where the process would be to evaluate students' learning needs and student learning strengths in terms of what we already understand in literature about disability. So classes of disability. When you identify a student into one of those categories, then the assumption is that the services and the money will follow to provide the opportunities. Whereas in the inclusion camp, it's more left maybe to the school and the services team around that student at the school and the classroom teacher to try to identify what their learning needs are and what services do we need to bring to help them close the gap if there is a gap, or to make it easier for them to get through their day.
Ceci's research is ongoing, but she has been surprised by what she's been learning so far.
I think what we're discovering is that it really looks more like it's allocation based. So it's not about student learning needs. The variation between, there's 72 Ontario district school boards currently in Ontario. And between those 72 Ontario district school boards, the variation in funding and what boards spend on special education isn't that great.
Ceci is not only a researcher, but also a former teacher, intern at the Ministry of Education, and the parent of children who needed access to special education services.
So eventually went on to have 3 children. All were identified with exceptionalities, 2 of them with multiple. And so from the parental perspective, I quickly saw that having learning needs met of students with exceptionalities can be challenging. And my practical experience was it changed from year to year and from school to school.
Ceci is hopeful that her research can help inform policy discussions happening on the ground today among advocates, school board officials, and other leaders. But her personal connection to the subject matter also means that she hopes her work will be useful for other parents who are trying to help their children navigate complex systems like she once did.
To give people or provide an up-to-date understanding of how the funding formula works despite its complexity, what the really important drivers are. If people are interested in getting their own child's needs met, just so that they can sort of affirm to themselves, yeah, like what I'm seeing is reflected in what's happening. So if I'm having a hard time getting funding, say for my child who's on the autistic spectrum, like, what's available and why isn't available and why does it look the same wherever I look? And then if you need to advocate for more, then at least you know what level you need to take it up to.
For more information about the work of the Equity in Education Research Cluster, please visit our website, equityeducation.ca. Thank you for listening.